As Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan's arrest and then his surprise release order brought thousands of his supporters onto the streets and into an unprecedented confrontation with the military, what's at stake for the country already on the brink of economic collapse? And what does it mean for the region, including India? But hello and welcome to Worldview at the Hindu with me, Suhasini Haidar. As you can see, I'm on the road again, this time for a conference. Now, Pakistan's politics really exploded once again this week with the sudden arrest of Imran Khan, former Prime Minister. But just take a look at these dramatic visuals of what happened. Pakistani Rangers, paramilitary forces, as they're called, storming into the court premises in Islamabad, where he had come to file a petition. They then gave him a warrant of arrest and dragged him away. And the Supreme Court later, a couple of days later, ruled that that manner of arrest was illegal. But before that, there were these scenes. In reaction to Imran Khan's arrest on Tuesday in a corruption case that involves what is called the Al-Qadir Trust, just look at the visuals of what happened. And of course, they've been playing out on screens across the world. Supporters of Imran Khan and his party, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, came out to protest in dozens of cities across Pakistan. They pelted stones, broke barricades, set highway interchanges on fire. There was widespread violence, clearly. The protesters even burnt down the iconic Radio Pakistan's main building in Peshawar. This is really an iconic building. But what was perhaps the most unprecedented was the protesters reaching army buildings, holding the army responsible for the arrest. First, they burnt down the corps commander's residence in Lahore. They entered, ransacked, looted, and set it on fire. They also breached the first gate, that first main gate of the general headquarters, the GHQ of the Pakistani army in Rawalpindi. This has seldom, if ever, happened before. In police crackdowns, about 2,600 of Khan supporters have been arrested over the past week, including key former ministers. We understand about 11 people have been killed, but of course, the opposition party saying many more. Eventually, on Thursday, as I said, the Supreme Court ruled that his arrest was illegal, unlawful, and must be reversed. They said we must backtrack it. And of course, the next few days and weeks will no doubt be important. After his release and the order for a protective bail for the next 2 weeks, here's what Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan said to the media.
The only hope now left, the only thin line between a banana republic and democracy is that judiciary. That's the only hope we have now. Otherwise, there is no rule of law here. It is a complete law of the jungle. Might is right. You can be picked up. One man in this country decides whatever, and that happens. There's just one man.
Now, while the arrest itself was dramatic and the violent reaction, it is by no means, as I said, a first or unexpected. Practically every Pakistani leader over the past few decades, former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, former President Zardari, former Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto, her own father, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who was eventually executed, former Prime Ministers Yusuf Raza Gilani, Shahid Khaqan Abbasi, General Pervez Musharraf, others have all faced serious charges of corruption and other cases, constitutional cases as well. And all of them have either served time in prison or fled abroad to UAE, to Saudi Arabia, to the UK to avoid arrest. This is quite common. In fact, former Prime Minister of Pakistan, Nawaz Sharif, lives in the UK at present. Every government that comes to power begins its tenure by trying to have the previous government arrested. And this is true of Mr. Imran Khan when he came to power himself. Now, since his ouster from power in April 2022, remember he came to power in 2018, Imran Khan has had more than 100 cases filed against him, corruption, criminal, constitutional, defamation cases as well. In particular, especially after that ouster, and then there was an assassination attempt on him last year. He was shot in both legs. Khan has been pointedly blaming not just the government, but the military for trying to eliminate him, naming the military and ISI intelligence officers quite directly at one point, calling them dirty Harrys for carrying out these operations. Now, the bigger picture for Pakistan is just this, that there is this political turmoil, that has caused uncertainty for elections this year, and the process ahead, the political process ahead itself seems to be in jeopardy.
Secondly, what we're seeing is signs of trouble within the Pakistani army, with many reports really pointing to the possibility that a part of the Pakistani military, specific officials, specific officers, those are divided, and some are in favor of Imran Khan. This could mean a shake-up down the military chain in the next few weeks as a result of the violence of the past week.
The economic crisis, COVID, plus the Ukraine war, so many other crises have led to very high inflation, which is causing much of the public unrest. In April, for example, and it's been record levels for the last few years. In April, for example, inflation touched 36.4%, another record. Then there is the economic debt and the possibility of a debt failure. Pakistan is considered almost certain to default on its next debt repayment in June, unless IMF actually, which is in negotiations, clears a bailout package of about $6.5 billion. It's being negotiated. The IMF has put all kinds of conditions. It hasn't gone forward yet. Pakistan has a total debt of around $140 billion, a total public debt more than $270 billion, which is about 80% of its GDP. Then included in that is indebtedness to China, about $30 billion, mostly from the CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, and infrastructure projects there, a new bailout loan, if you like, that Pakistan asked for earlier this year of $700 million as well has been offered by China. And then there is climate change. Of course, this affects the entire region and flooding, but Pakistan is really bracing for its weather systems this year and speaking about the possibility of more trouble. All these crises in turn could further fuel insurgent and cross-border terror groups. It becomes easier to recruit terrorists in this kind of environment. In a mosque bombing in Peshawar this year, more than 100 people were actually killed. In fact, just last week, and remember we came to you from Goa from the SCO Council for Foreign Ministers meeting, and we'd shown you excerpts of what the Pakistan Foreign Minister had said about India-Pakistan ties. But he also spoke about the crises that Pakistan is facing. He called it the perfect storm, if you like. Listen in this interview to The Hindu.
As far as our perfect storm is concerned, I think Pakistan is facing a unique sort of situation, which I have described it as a perfect storm. But we are, as the globe at large, facing a multitude of crises simultaneously, forming their own perfect storms. We have the COVID pandemic, once in a 100-year sort of crisis that we all went through together. Every economy on the planet suffered and is still suffering. We haven't been able to recover from that shock in and of itself. We add to that the fall of Kabul that may have less implications for other countries, has a direct security implication for Pakistan, but also an economic consequences for Pakistan. Shortly after that, we have the war between Russia and Ukraine, which has economic consequences for the whole world, the economic consequences for the West, for India, and for Pakistan. Everybody is suffering from inflation, etc., the knock-on effects of that conflict. To top it all off, we've got climate catastrophe after climate catastrophe. No country is immune. Everybody is being impacted. But after what Pakistan experienced last year, where 1/3 of our landmass was underwater, 1 in 7 Pakistanis became climate refugees overnight. That was 33 million people. Now, I don't know, what the math would be like if 1 in 7 Indians were affected overnight in a climate catastrophe. 1/3 of this landmass of India was underwater at any one time. I mean, that is a catastrophic natural disaster, has its own economic impacts as well. So in the Pakistani context, that's certainly a perfect storm. But also internationally, we're facing a perfect storm, which is why I'm glad that I'm here at the SCO, because I believe these are collective challenges. They're collective challenges of all of humanity, not of any one nation. And we can only meet these challenges together. So forums such as the SCO, where all member states work collectively on economy, on security, on the regional integration, these are the forums where we can perhaps rise to meet the challenges that we are facing.
So now the big question, with Pakistan practically floundering in this manner, what's at stake for the region, including for India? Can the region, for example, just be bystanders on this? Because, of course, crisis in Pakistan means less controls over terrorist movement coming from Afghanistan, also within Pakistan itself, those terror groups present, more violence for the region. Really is a very difficult proposition, and everyone must watch that. Then the IMF bailout failure that I told you about, that will reflect badly across the region. Remember, Sri Lanka and Bangladesh already in negotiations, still hopeful of more IMF support. But this gives the entire region a kind of a difficult outlook. Further indebtedness to China means a bigger Chinese presence in South Asia. We've seen this in debt-ridden countries in the rest of South Asia. Last week, after a trilateral with Chinese Foreign Minister Qin Gang, Pakistan Foreign Minister Bhutto, and the Taliban's Foreign Minister Muttaqi there in Islamabad, the three sides also agreed to extend the CPEC infrastructure corridor from Pakistan through Afghanistan. So you're seeing more of this kind of presence of China. And for India, this is the year of the SCO summit, of course, and the G20. And Pakistan Prime Minister is expected to be has been invited for the conference, is expected to travel to India. But all of this uncertainty may mean the summit is moved or he appears virtually. But certainly any instability as a result, any uptick in cross-border violence, for example, or terror attacks inside India will mean trouble for all the various multilateral events that are being planned, whether it is for G20 or for SCO. And of course, a confrontation with the military, the instability next door is a concern for each of Pakistan's neighbors, Iran, Afghanistan, India. After all, if the military has been more or less in control of Pakistan, it always is difficult. It always means more difficulties, if you like, when it loses that control. So what is Worldview's take on this? While Pakistan has been on the brink on several occasions in the past, it has managed to pull back. However, all its present worries, political turmoil, economic collapse, terrorism within, and instability in Afghanistan have all seldom come together at one point like this. Also unprecedented is the anger and confrontation with Pakistan's all-powerful military, and India must be agile, dynamic with its policy, watch closer, and put aside its bilateral problems for a moment and be prepared for any outcome. If Pakistan is headed Sri Lanka's way, India must consider helping its neighbor, reconsider its current policy, despite all the issues. And if Pakistan is headed Afghanistan's way, then India has even more reason to be proactive now. Let's get you some reading recommendations. And this time I'm really coming to you with a bunch of new books, actually, which you might find interesting. One of them, of course, is from a few years ago, The Pakistan Paradox, Instability and Resilience by Christophe Chaffrelot. I reread it. It speaks of just what kind of turmoil Pakistan has been in the past and gives a lot of prognosis for the future, which is unfortunately coming true. Then this book, more recently by a young author, Pakistan Under Siege, Extremism, Society and the State by Madiha Afzal. She's a US-based scholar. It has chapters on the impact of Islamization and radicalization for Pakistan in particular. Very, very interesting reading. Then, of course, there's Pakistan Origins, Identity and Future by Parvez Hoodboy. Anyone who hasn't read this nuclear physicist's sane and incisive analysis of Pakistan over the years is missing out. This is his latest book, and it is something I haven't read yet, but I'm very, very keen to get my hands on very quickly. There's also Imran Khan's Pakistan, A Personal History. This is the only political biography he has written. He wrote it in 2011, and it is quite interesting on his view of the country. Then there's an old favorite, I think I've spoken about it before, called The Struggle for Pakistan, A Muslim Homeland and Global Politics by Aisha Jalal, is from 2020. It's a must-read, along with her previous book, which you might find very interesting, on Saadat Hasan Manto, The Pity of Partition. Next is Reimagining Pakistan, Transforming a Dysfunctional Nuclear State by Hussein Haqqani. Now, this book really is more prescriptive than his previous ones, between mosque and military and then magnificent delusions about Pakistan and America ties. This one really talks about what Pakistan can do differently for a different future. Another book that's just come in called A White Trail, A Journey into the Heart of Pakistan's Religious Minorities, if that subject is of interest to you, by Harun Khalid. This is coming out this month, so I haven't read it yet, but if you are interested, I would also recommend Farnaz Isfahani's Purifying the Land of the Pure, her latest edited work, a collection of essays from across South Asia called Politics of Hate, Religious Majoritarianism in South Asia. And then finally, there is one book written about India-Pakistan ties. I've spoken about it before, but I really think this is an important one. India-Pakistan Relations Under 6 Prime Ministers by Sati Lamba or Satinder Lamba, a diplomat who passed away last year, but completed his book about being special envoy and having so many other roles in the India-Pakistan dialogue. This is the most important book on possible solutions for the two countries written thus far. I hope you do enjoy reading all of these and do join us again on Worldview. Remember, we are available on The Hindu's website, www.thehindu.com, but also The Hindu's YouTube channel. And if that's where you're watching us, please do subscribe. From the team here, thanks for watching.